Coach, how's it feel to have the headset on again? You feel like you're ready to coach him again?
Oh, yeah. Well, I never wore one, but as an assistant I did, but not as a head coach. I just wanted to get the feel and the sound, and I like to hear that hitting.
Welcome to our week 2 KK Collision football show presented by KK Collision. Honored to have former Napoleon coach and well-respected.
Thank you.
Lynn Schrickel with us here this week.
Thank you, Lynn, and you make me feel good because there's only a couple Lynns out there,
Yeah?
Yeah, and that song, Johnny Cash, Boy Named Sue, I think that's what my dad, you had to learn how to fight.
Along with Tory, Strock, I'm Lynn Groll, and the great Lynn Schrickel. Looking forward to having him join us tonight. All I know about you is you coached at Napoleon and some other things in the 80s, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Take us through, for those people listening, your journey and what's gotten you where you are today, Coach.
Well, I got my feet wet in Berea as junior high coach, and that was a great experience. They had a riff, and that was a blessing in disguise. A friend of mine that went to BG had access to all the data back then. In the 70s, everybody didn't have a personal computer, and he said, there's a job I think you're made for down in Ironton. I said, well, Ironton? I never heard of that place. He said, that's football town. And so I went down there and took that job, and it was a great experience. For 9 years there, every practice was like a clinic. Every coach was phenomenal. And I learned a lot, and then I thought I'd get my feet wet, and I had a friend over in Ottawa, and he said, Ottawa Glandorf job's open, so I threw my hat in a ring over there, and they hired me, and we were looking for houses the next day, and I went back to the gym. They had about 400 boys dribbling basketball in there. I thought, this is going to be a hard place to win football. So they hired me. I had the job. I was the Ottawa Glandorf coach for 1 week, and then I got cold feet. And then the head coach put me in different situations down there in Ironton to learn a little bit more about different positions. And so 2 years later, the same guy from Ottawa called me. He says, I got another spot for you. I said, where's that? Napoleon. I said, never heard of that either. And he said, well, they just won the state basketball title, and I should have known I wasn't going to get too many basketball players, but we did really well, and what a great experience, what a great community. And Tory, you know how good those kids are to coach. It was just great. So then I went back south to South Point, and they had great athletes there, but they were starting to recruit, and Ironton was sticking their hand in the bucket, taking players from the whole tri-state area. So then I finished my 30 years of teaching coaching in South Point, and it was a great experience. And then I moved up with back the kids up here in Northwest Ohio, and then John Downey hired me over at Archibald, and I was with him a few years in football and several years in track, and had a great experience there. So that is a brief history of my coaching.
Wow. Well, I tried to get him on our podcast to pick some games, but since he's friends with so many people, he didn't want to offend anybody. He can't pick this team because he's friends with that team.
He's always been kind of a soft guy like that. So
absolutely.
Coach, where'd you grow up?
Over in Clyde. Great coaching over there. You probably going through the halls at BG would have seen this name up, Vic Duriel. He was, when they dedicated the stadium at BG Dwight Perry Stadium, he was interviewed, and he said, who was your favorite player? He says, well, we've had Bob Reynolds, we played pro, Bernie Casey was a Hall of Famer, but my favorite player was a little running back from Canton called Vic Diorio, and he was my backfield coach at Clyde, and he inspired me. But the guy that really made me want to be a coach was a guy by the name of Dutch Art Hendricks, and he was a track coach. He had coached football, basketball, track, wrestling, and he was the closest thing to a human pit bull I've ever seen. And if you could run, you were his buddy.
That's great. Why did you want to get into football and go back to maybe when you were a kid, and why did you want to play football, and why did you coach football?
Well, you know, I grew up with a big family. My father didn't have the opportunity to play, and heck, I'd rather go to two-a-days than go out and pick and shovel or something like that, you know. And I really enjoyed it. And every place I grew up in Clyde, I was the young guy playing with older kids, and you learned how to play ball, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, and then the lot we played on had sandburrs, so I learned how to stay on my feet. Stay on my feet was a running back. But I just love that contact. I love practice. I love the whole preparation of football.
Coach, talk for a second, being from Clyde. I've got the guy that was the best man in my wedding is actually a Clyde graduate, so I know a little bit about the community. But when I think of that area, that whole kind of Sandusky Bay area, Clyde, Bellevue, towns like that, I think of toughness.
Yes.
What makes them tougher than some other places?
I don't think, there's a blue-collar mentality there in Clyde. The Whirlpool plant, those guys that work there earn their money. My father worked there, my brother worked there, I worked there a while, and some rough, tough people, but sincere. And that Bellevue is the same way, a very same way. But something about Clyde, we always had speed. In my high school backfield, every kid ran 100 yards under 10-1. Yeah. Now that was on cinders.
Yeah.
And we just, back then we just didn't have the big kids. And then when Clyde incorporated Green Springs, they got the nice big farm kids with good work ethic and that. And they were state champion a couple times, and we were state champion in track and state champion in wrestling. And I can't, people ask me the same thing. I don't know. But
there's some railroad workers up that way too,
yes,
right?
Bellevue more than Clyde, yeah. But I remember my relatives in Clyde and Sandusky, they say, can you really go through Clyde with your windows down, your car unlocked? Because everybody looked at that as a tough place, but it really wasn't.
Describe what kind of running back you were. Were you built on speed, or would you run people over?
I was just a little guy. I was little. I wish we had the opportunity these kids have now with nutrition and strength training, because when I started that, things happened. But I had was gifted with speed, and and I got a scholarship to Findlay, and I had a great experience there. I didn't play all 4 years, but it was a great time. And but no, I didn't run over anybody. Now my grandsons did. I don't think Bryant knew how to sidestep a block. I says, you could spin and use your stiff arm and get out of that. And then Max, but now my son Mike played for me at Napoleon. He was a standout, and now he had some speed too. But if we would have had a real passing game, I probably would have made him a wideout, because he was built for that.
Yeah.
But he won some games for me.
Okay.
Yep.
So I was, and some folks know this that is watching, but so I had the pleasure of coaching two of Coach Schrickel's grandsons. Bryant Schlade was a fullback for me. Our 2012 team We were the only Napoleon team in history to finish number 1 in the AP poll in the state of Ohio, which I know doesn't matter. Now, back in the 70s, we'd have been state champs, you know?
Absolutely.
But we ran into a great Bellevue team. So Bryant, and then on that same team, Max Westoven, another grandson who was more of the speed guy. And Coach Schrickel, I admit, when I coached Bryant and Max, I probably treated them a little unfairly, and I'll tell you why. Because I knew you were their grandpa.
They could take it.
And so I knew there was nothing I could say or do that would ruffle their feathers. And so that year in 2012, we're playing Bryan in the regional semifinals at Central Catholic. We ended up winning 21-20. Remember, we stopped.
Yes, I did.
Max knocked the kid out of bounds.
Inside the 3.
Yep, right at the goal line.
Yep.
And in that game, in the third quarter of that game, Bryant Schlade, who was one of the toughest nuts I ever coached, he got a hip pointer. And sometimes, I don't care how tough you are, you can't walk.
Right.
And he comes up to me, he says, Coach, I can't run. And I said, try running, let me see you. And he tries to jog, and he couldn't. He about buckled and fell down. And I thought, you know what, he must be hurt, because that kid was tough. But I expected him to be able to play through it, and nobody could have. And Max broke his leg, remember?
Yes.
And then came back and had a stellar senior year.
Oh, he sure did.
And
yeah, that game at Central Catholic against Bryan, that was a heck of a game, and I do recall that. But so proud of those boys and all my grandchildren and my daughters and my son, and my wife. It's just a wonderful family, and I was truly blessed, Coach.
And Coach Schrickel, you coached your son-in-law, Brian Westoven, at Napoleon. Was he a quarterback for you?
Oh, yeah. He was an all-state quarterback, and he was like another coach on the field. I mean, he didn't play any defense. He'd come over the sideline, and he says, that bootleg's open, Coach. Yeah.
Did you know at that time he would be your son-in-law? Were he and Jackie high school sweethearts?
No, he started loafing around there afterwards. I watched him pretty close. He came in that house, you know that.
That's great.
And so anyway, come to find out, Gene Westhoven, his father, was giving him, I don't know, $20 a touchdown. Well, we ran our offense when we got down to red zone was option football, belly option, and he's a left-handed quarterback, and you usually hide somebody, and it's usually on the left side. We would attack that corner, and the pitch was never going to be. He was not going to pitch a ball. He's got that $20. And then Guy, who married Kim, he was an all-state ball player for me, and tough as nails also. And matter of fact, they're moving back in the area, hopefully. Yeah, but the girls, I mean, we talk football and that, but if my daughters would have been boys, they would have been all state too.
Let me take my first break, and we'll come back and continue talking here to Coach Schrickel. KK Collision is a leader in the auto repair industry that has been servicing Northwest Ohio's auto needs for over 27 years. We offer a fast and reliable repair option that stands above the competition. When your vehicle enters our facility, you can be assured that you have chosen the most technologically advanced repair facility in the area. KK Collision is an automotive body and mechanical shop, as well as both a light and heavy-duty towing service located in Liberty Center. Our towing services cover Northwest Ohio and the surrounding area 24 hours a day. Are you in need of a repair estimate? Visit us anytime during business hours for a free estimate at T556 Ohio 109 on the north side of Liberty Center, or call 888-533-7801 or visit our website at kkcollision.com. Thank you to Kyle Kern at KK Collision sponsoring our football show again this season. Can't thank Kyle enough. He has been a generous supporter of ours since we started Black Swamp Full, and can't thank Kyle enough. A staple of the Liberty Center community, and a person next to us here, it's a staple of kind of Northwest Ohio football, Lynn Schrickel. I'm curious about your 1986 team, Coach, because you made the first playoff venture in Napoleon history. The only guy I know on that team was, I believe it was the center, was Scott the center. Scott Army was the center, right?
Yes.
On that team in 86.
Yep.
Tell me about that team, and why were they able to make a foray into the playoffs the first time in Napoleon history?
Well, I would go to the junior highs, Central, St. Augie's, St. Paul, and St. John's. And I can remember at Central, those kids were 8th graders, and I really prepped what I was going to say to those guys. And I got their attention real fast because a couple boys were kind of horsing around in the front row, and I said, you guys can, if you want to come out next year, you can, but you're out of this meeting right now. And I set the stage when they were in 8th grade. And those kids worked, my golly, they worked hard. And for my 8-year career, I could count on one hand the number of Napoleon boys that ever missed a workout session. Not during the season, off season I'm talking about. But that 86 team and the 87 team, I wouldn't want to be playing Napoleon.
Who was the baddest dude on that team?
We had a bunch of them. I saw some guys roughing it up, and I'd have to say Guy Miller probably had a lot. He was only about $180 then, but I mean we had the Spurgeons, we had Anderson, Bernicke, Lather. Now there is a ball player. David Lather. Oh my golly. Whoa. Yeah, we had some good kids and really a smart line. That year, I started, I would take, I'd always document the strength part of it, 40-yard dash. That year I started GPA. Well, shoot, every one of those kids was really a bright kid. And that equated to good team. And they held together, but we just did not match up with Fostoria. And I take my hat off to Dick Kidwell. And he was a gentleman. We beat him a couple times. They were really, really good. Mm-hmm. And but we just did not match up. But that year we beat, I think we beat Toledo Whitmer. Yeah, they were the largest team in the state of Ohio. And then the next year, I think we went to double overtime up at their stadium. But boy, I always had some really good players at Napoleon, and good parents, and great backing, good community. Yep.
Coach, what do you remember about, I know they had some basketball success right under Coach Church, won a state title, but that's a football town too, and
Absolutely.
Charles Buckenmeyer, you're coaching in his shadow,
Yep.
So do you remember the excitement in the community when you guys made the playoffs for the first time?
Yes, we had pep rally on the square, and it was just amazing. And as a coach, you've seen this. You might think you're getting everything out of them kids. Well, that week of that first week of the playoff, and Coach Buckenmeyer, the playoffs started in 71 or 72, and they were in the NWOL, the big fish in the little pond, and they weren't getting the points. And back then, the only 2 went to the playoffs from that region. But anyway, what was I saying about Coach Buckenmeyer?
He never made the playoffs.
Didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
No. So anyway, what I was saying, the media, the TV stations would be at every doggone practice, and here I told the coaches, I says, we're not doing our job. We weren't getting as much out of those kids as we thought, because when that camera's on them, they had another
They
gear.
turned it up.
That's good stuff. What were practices like in your day at Clyde High School?
Well, we had a backfield coach and a line coach. So I go to Findlay, and these kids from the city, Toledo, Columbus, Dayton, they'd have, individual position coaches, and the drills, well, I was backwards at that. And it was, but I respected those 2 coaches so much that just hung on everything he said. But
Was there a lot of hitting when you were practicing in Clyde,
yeah.
Coach?
Yep.
In high school?
Yeah, it sure did. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, just like it is now. But I think we even had pads on Mondays.
I believe that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, golly, that goes back a long ways.
Yeah.
I enjoyed playing, truthfully, more than I enjoyed coaching football. Yeah.
Okay.
I enjoyed playing the game.
Okay.
Coach, and I want to make sure this makes sense. I was thinking about this today. If I had it figured out how I was going to ask this question. You think of all the things you learned as a coach. Okay, you take your lumps, you have some good, you have some bad. If a young Lynn Schrickel were going to coach today, what are a couple things you learned 30, 40, 50 years ago that you would take with you today? What are some of the most valuable lessons you learned?
That is a toughie.
Was it something maybe about offense, something about defense, something about how to motivate?
No, the motivation was never a problem for me. And I think, truthfully, Coach, I would teach the line play the same as I used, two-gap control. And instead of every week putting in game plans where you're stunting and all that, and the defense that I taught, I think I could stop this spread now. You better have some good people to drop if you're going to go 3 deep and 2 under and add that. But I don't know. But I got such a good schooling down in Ironton, and in college, those coaches classes, they don't teach you a whole lot.
Yeah.
They don't teach you a whole lot.
Till you get thrown into the fire, right? That's when you learn.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. But the first one, Coach, was Defiance, and at Napoleon, 81.
At Loose Field.
Yes, but we went over to Defiance, and they had a couple of running backs that their dads transferred from the Foundry in New York. Oh. We didn't have an answer, and they were all over St. John's like a cheap suit. And we come back, and the coach said, "What do you think, Coach?" I said, "We're going to have a long night." So my first out of the chute, it was run, pass, punt, and I don't think we had stood. And I realigned everything, and I set down a lot of those big kids. And I got some 150, 160 pound wrestlers that stepped in the guard and that. And so the third game, we run up 55 points. The fourth game, we run up 64 points and ended up winning that league that first year.
Wow.
And I wish I would have had those kids a couple years. That bunch was very, very good also. But my father, I had to relate this to you. So he's sitting behind somebody from Napoleon, and they said, "I don't know who this guy is," meaning me, but he made 2 mistakes. He said, "Come in here and buy in a house."
I can relate, Coach. I can relate.
You know
darn right.
It's a tough crowd. It's a tough crowd.
Oh, that's great. Were you able to coax any of those basketball players out that first year, Coach?
Oh, no.
No, didn't get any basketball?
No. But here's the funny one. So we get Andrew Kovich in from a 6'7" kid from Texas.
Oh, wow.
And the story was that he was all-state. Well, he's just a sophomore in Texas, and he came here right off the bat. He gets a concussion in scrimmage and then broke a bone in his head. I said, "What do you think about this Ohio football?" He's, "Man, they hit up here." So I was not getting those kids, and I tried.
Yeah.
I tried, but I wasn't one to sit down and kiss up to anybody to get them to play. If you don't love the game, you shouldn't be out there. But so it was like, I think it was 4 years before I got a basketball player. But when Kovich came here at 6'7", They came to me. they want Kovis.
And Napoleon had won that spring, right? 81, the spring of 81? State basketball, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Coach, talk about, and I love, and I know I speak for Lynn, love hearing about Ironton and Clyde and South Point and that, but for our local listeners, and I hate to put you on the spot, because I know I always forget people, but talk about some of your assistant coaches that you had when you were at Napoleon.
Oh, now I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was very blessed also with some great fellas. From Tim Downey, Mike Hummer, Kevin Milius, Carl Junker, those guys just super. I had other guys that had gone on. Well, anyway, on my staff was Bill Enselman. And I was loyal to them, and they were loyal to me, and I didn't move him up, and I probably should have. Yeah. And Mike Burke was a good freshman coach, and he moved up to take the head job and that. But those guys were just terrific and really, really bright guys, and worked hard at it, that's for sure. And I enjoy getting together with them and having a Pepsi once in a while.
Yeah. Well, I know.
Pepsi's always good.
Well, I know how much they love you.
Yes.
And, of course, I had a couple of those guys on my staff, you know. I had, of course, Mike Hummer, Kevin Milius, Carl Junker was on my staff. Tim Downey helped Carl coach the freshmen.
Yep.
And so I was fortunate. But there's something special about you, because those guys would stand in front of a freight train for you to this day.
Boy, don't say that.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm sorry. But they would, and you know they would.
Yeah.
And,
they honored me to be a godfather to their sons.
Yep.
Yeah, and that is great, and I'm so proud of what those boys have done. And they were young when I came to Napoleon, really young, but they bought in, and I felt so comfortable and honored, and saw them grow, and just a bright bunch of guys, hardworking and always confident. Always confident. That's what made me feel so good about that bunch. Yep, I'm still close with those fellas.
Who are some of your mentors or guys that have maybe really helped you along your journey?
Well, I mentioned my Dutch Hendricks and Vic Dioriel, and I would have to say that Bob Lutz Downey, he at one point he was the winningest coach in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
And he helped me out a lot, that's for sure. I learned a lot from him and that staff down there. But even John Downey, he brought me on staff when I retired, and he is a football man out and out, and he stayed tough to the very end.
Yes, he did.
He stayed tough to the very end. Yeah. So I was over watching inter squad, and John installed some of his running offense. This year's Archibald team, and he was on the field. He came over. He says, "Would you take out of this scrimmage?" And I says, the kids look quick. I said, crisp and that. But I said, when we were scrimmaging, because we always scrimmage Archibald, Napoleon, and I said, if I was back of that annex, which was about 150 yards, you could hear our hitting. He says, that's exactly what I told somebody else.
Coach, if you were to coach today, what type of offense would you run? Would you be wing T like Liberty Center? Would you spread it out and go 5 wide, a mix? Would it depend on what kind of kids you had? What would you be doing offensively if you coached today?
Well, if I had you to run the passing attack, I'd be spreading that field and running. But I probably incorporate it all, depending on the talent. That wing T, though, when I watched Liberty, I watched them practice a couple times and came to their scrimmage. I just love that brand of football.
Yeah.
And I bet you, to get in that red zone, I'd be in that full house, double tights, and just take it at you, stop me.
Yeah.
But I think I would bring back a version of the option ball, whether it be the veer or the belly. But I always liked that ball, and you gotta be patient and school it up. That's it. But you put you can isolate and put that guy 2-on-1, and you're going to win. Yeah,
That's awesome, Coach.
We're well versed kind of on the history of Ironton in these parts. You know, Wasion played them in '93. Liberty Center played them this past season, and they have so much history. Is there a reason, since you spent time there, is there a reason a place like Ironton has been so successful and has such a vast history on the gridiron in your mind, Coach Schrickel?
they've got some tough cookies down there. So they got speed. When all the foundries and the mills were running, it was a melting pot of America. You had the Polacks, you had the Hungarians, you had the Africans, you had don't rule out those hillbillies. Those boys came to play too, but we had there's just tough. And I can remember when I came to Napoleon, at one of my duties was lunch duty, and one of the administrators says, Coach Keith said, keep your head on a swivel because they throw tater tots in here. I thought, what in the devil? I just saw, we had Fight Patrol down there, you know, there's always a brawl in Ironton and South Point in the cafeteria. It was like Friday night at the fights. But the kids, we weren't, when I went down there, we were just in our 20s, the whole staff was about the exact same age, and these kids were just a few years younger than us, and but it was still coach, and they never disrespected you, and to this day I've got kids that still call me, and I had the honor of going down to give the pregame, and we had a big party 2 years ago, and that was something else. And, oh, yeah, but it's almost like a collegiate atmosphere. The little kids will want chin straps. Kids are autographing stuff. It's unbelievable.
Coach, what do you remember about Tanks Memorial Stadium? I've watched videos. Lynn and I have watched videos on that stadium they play at Ironton. That just looks like a historic place.
Yes. Well, you know, pro football originated down in Portsmouth and Ironton. They had the Portsmouth Spartans, I think.
That's right.
And then I think they became the Detroit Lions, if I'm wrong. But they've got two guys from Ironton that are in the Hall of Fame. That back in the turn of the century. But oh man, I tell you what, that was. Well, I'll tell you. Here's the mentality. The first 4 years, I've told all my friends up here this, and they think I'm blowing smoke. But first 4 years, we weren't organized as teachers, and but we lived very, very good because the boosters took care of the coaches, and we didn't have dental, optometry, a family doctor, and for the football coaches, we had an optometrist, a dentist, and assigned to your family. And you go in for you take your kid in for a teeth cleaning. They say, well, put him down for 6 months. See you in 6 months. That's the way it was.
Wow.
And it was taken care of for you.
Yeah. So I come up to Napoleon, and I was told, but I won't say who. And I want to keep this on the. I want to think positive, but there's an administrator who said, if you think this is Ironton, you're going to make this Ironton. It ain't going to happen, brother.
Oh, that's good.
Coach, let's say there's a young coach, a 28-year-old young coach that's getting ready to get his first head coaching job, and he comes up to you and says, Coach Schrickel, what advice do you have for me as a first-year head coach? What advice are you going to give a young coach?
Oh boy,
I put you on the spot.
Yeah, you better see what you're following, because I was third guy after the legendary Charles Buckmeyer, and I mean, what the heck, that's a tough act to follow. And you better see about how your administration is going to back you in that. I don't care about anything else, because anybody worth their salt, they're going to develop those kids. But the anymore that mentality in the background, and I don't know. And they better have a good woman behind them also.
Yeah, that's right.
For sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is the best advice,
Yeah.
Coach. I think that's advice that hasn't changed in the last 50 years, because I think those have always been some of the most important things.
Yeah. Well, think of the time you put in, and your wife,
Yeah.
she's all about it.
Yeah.
Well, when we lost, my wife would say, "You didn't work hard enough."
Coach, we're seeing numbers in football kind of plummeting, not just in these parts, but other areas around the nation. Can we get football back to the numbers that maybe we used to have 20, 30
No.
years ago? Do you have any thoughts on that, Coach?
It's scary. I don't know what's happened, but too many of the parents have all the answers, I think. I shouldn't be saying that, because the people I've come in contact with, it's just been positive. But back, even Coach Strock, when you coached, you didn't have kids going home and talking about the coaches in a negative way. And back when I was a kid, even if that coach did something wrong, Mom and Dad said, no, they're right. Whatever they said, we're backing them. But as far as the numbers, golly, Neds, I don't know. You look at Liberty and Napoleon and Archibald and PH. We've gone to those practices, and they're still doing good, so they're doing something right. But golly, I don't know. It's always been that kid, once he gets a car, that's a car or a girl.
Is there too much for kids to do these days?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Just too much is handed. I really believe that. I shouldn't say that, but too much is handed to them. Their entitlement and that. I hate to see that. But there's still some old school kids and parents out there, that's for sure.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Coach, really the last thing I have, I've got about 16 things I had written down, but one of the questions I want to ask you, when you were coaching at Napoleon, I'm going to assume, I could be wrong, did you coach against David Hansbarger at Swanton?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Great guy. I'll tell you one about David. So Carl Junker was on the staff, and his brother was coaching at Swanton, and we picked them up, and they were going to be good that year. And I asked Carl that Sunday night meeting, I said, "Go find out where your heart is." He says, "You know where it's at, Coach." And he said, "This is what's going to happen." He said, when we stop their wishbone, they're going to bring in this kid. He ended up playing at Toledo, a young quarterback, and they're going to spread the field, and it was like a version of the old run and shoot. And we had that scripted. Anyway, we beat them up pretty good. And Dave came to the locker room afterwards, and he said, "You do me a favor. This has never happened before. Again, it is." He said, "Will you come in the locker room and tell these kids what you guys do every morning? You get up at 6, we're lifting weights at 6 a.m. And so I saw him in the spring. I says, "How'd that work?" He said, "Didn't help me."
So, Coach, this kind of goes along with what Lynn asked you a minute ago. So you take a place like Swanton, Coach Hansbarger won a lot of ball games, tough community, a program now that's battling the numbers issue we talked about. Swanton went from winning and competing for NWAL championships. They've struggled a little bit. How does a place like Swanton maybe start to get back to where they were? I know that's a tough question.
Yeah. Well, Bruce Smith went up to Swanton at retirement. He went to Delta and turned things around there. He went to Whitmer, played for the state title, and he went to Swanton, and they were not, I don't think they were real good in basketball, but he made them good.
Yeah.
And I think it's got to be the right mesh, train of thought. But at retirement, if you get a guy that's retired, he doesn't have to play any politics. He doesn't have to play any. He doesn't have to worry about his teaching job, and he can coach like you're supposed to coach.
That's a great point.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. I'm curious, Tory asked about, you coached against Coach Hansbarger, and you've coached with some other greats. Who were maybe some of the coaches that you maybe dreaded coaching against just because they were so darn hard to beat, in your opinion?
Well, Larry Fruth right here in Wasion, he was a toughie, but they looked at Napoleon as a rival, and we're coming off a Defiance.
You always played them week 2.
It's week 2, and he had our number, and he was a great one. I respected 3 guys. One was Dick Kidwell, tough guy he went at retirement where he had him going at Fostoria, and he went won a state championship in North Carolina. And when we beat him, he shook my hand and he said, "You deserve." He said, "You gave us you put it to us." And then Pat Gucciardo up at Whitmer was a gentleman also. And first time they started, they're the biggest school in the state, and they took over those GLL meetings for 3 years previous to coming into this league. He, the basketball coach, and the athletic director would sit in. They had everybody scared before they played anything. And so we get them down there on a rainy night at Loose Field, and they ran through our ranks on the field with 125 guys. Well, that was like waving a red flag in front of a Brahma bull. And they had that 125 in the mud to the east side of the field, and they had it all chewed up. And I told Tim and Mike and Kevin, I said, we're going to keep their butt.
I love it.
Keep their butt down here in the mud. And darned if we didn't beat them.
Really?
Yeah. But he was a gentleman in defeat. He was a gentleman when he won. And another guy I really liked, and I think he passed, John Johnson. He coached at Maycomber. And there's no field up at Maycomber, and he wasn't a teacher there, and he ended up out at Clay. And we never lost at Clay. And we beat them up bad that night, and they had some guy came in who was all Iowa. Well, that guy didn't get 5 yards against us. I don't know what level that was in Iowa, maybe. But anyway, so in the Saturday morning in the Blade, John Johnson said, Napoleon took us back to the woodshed and gave us an old-fashioned ass whipping. And darned if they didn't print that. I think I got that what do you call it, that clipping, but those guys, yeah, I could think of a lot of them, but come and go, you see, when somebody's staying a while, like you did, that tells you something.
Did Whitmer coach when you coached against Coach Gucciardo? Who was that stud tight end they
here
had?
we're talking.
Yeah.
There's probably somebody out there think, that's his son that coached at Springfield.
Pat Gucciardo Sr. Yes.
That guy is Slaycheck.
Mark Slaycheck.
Went to BG.
Yes.
Well, Tim Downey had the secondary that year, and he came up. We were bracketing that kid, and we had a couple good athletes on him. Oh, we couldn't stop him. Well, I think he was about 6'3", and he could jump out and catch any. They're just lofting it up, and he catching them. Yeah, but when you played Whitmer, we'd have maybe some years we'd have 185-pound guards going against a 225-pound linebacker, but they. I enjoyed that mismatch.
Coach, you got the Lifetime Achievement Award a couple years ago at the Northwest Ohio Coaches Clinic. What did that mean to you?
I got that plaque in my garage. I should have it in the front room, but it's in the garage, and it was an honor. That was, and Todd Peterson, good friend of mine, coaching at at Archibald. He was probably instrumental in getting me into that. So anyway, Mike Hummer was coming down to Findlay. We're going to have a bite to eat at the Irish pub down from the hotel where the thing was. And here comes the whole staff. Well, that was at 5 o'clock. I'm up at 7:05 to speak. Well, they weren't Pepsis I was drinking. So they weren't Pepsis, and so I get over there, and there's a hospitality suite, and Todd takes me in there. Here's a bottle of, it wasn't Pepsi either.
It was bourbon. I was there.
Yeah, that's right. And my name was on it.
Yeah.
Well, that went on for a while, and I didn't have any filter that night, and that was pretty funny.
Oh, yeah,
That was great fun. That was a great time. That was great. So that was great. I got to talk to a lot of the coaches, and that was an honor. I really thought that was great.
Would you let Todd Peterson on your staff?
I'd take him in a heartbeat. Yeah, one night I couldn't sleep. I woke up and I said, here's where I'm going to come out of retirement, and I'm going to have so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so on my staff, and we're going to beat everybody.
How would have you kept him calm, though, Coach? Could you kept Coach Peterson on the level?
Well, heck, you've seen Tim Downey and Mike Hummer. Well, gee, my knees. They make Todd look like a choir boy.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
He's a tough bird. He's a tough bird. He's a type. I'd call him up at 2 o'clock in the morning and ask him to do something around. He'd help me out.
He would.
That's the way those guys are. That's the way those guys are. And somebody asked me. They said, "How did you pick your coaches?" I didn't care if they knew X's and O's. I'm going to teach them what I know about that. I just want somebody that I would want my son to play for. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Darn right.
Good answer.
Darn right.
Yeah.
Good answer.
And everybody that I had, I would want my son to play. They played, coach him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have one more thing.
I thought you were done 5 minutes ago.
I am, but I get thinking.
You guys are.
It's become a two-man conversation. I'm over here.
Well, you have to think of better questions.
No, I've got them. I've got them. If you would not have been a teacher and a football coach, what would Lynn Schrickel have done for his life's work?
Well, my big hero, of course, my father is a hero.
Yeah.
But my grandfather farmed, and I wanted to farm with him. And he says, I don't have enough to go around. I don't have enough to go around. But I did a lot of stuff in the summer till I went down to South Point. I always worked to make ends meet. And I laid block. I climbed the iron a little bit. I don't know. But those guys would say, yeah, you're having fun with this because you're only going to do it for 10 weeks.
That's right. You had a finish line. You knew where it ended, yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question, but that's really all.
See, that's a good question. You hearing?
Yeah.
I think he's just being nice.
Yeah. I probably, I don't know. That's a good, I don't know what.
I want you to think about that. Next time I see you, I want to know what you decided.
Well, hey, you can't beat being a PE teacher.
That's right, buddy.
What the heck?
Pretty good life, isn't it?
That place, yeah. You played war ball, dodgeball, and lift weights. And
What's war ball?
That's what we call it down south, but up here you had to be nicer, call it dodgeball.
Okay, war ball.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was maybe something a little more
Yeah.
aggressive. But
No, it's the same
okay.
thing.
What has kept you around the game of football for so long? Is it the relationships and getting to go visit with the coaches and kids still, or what
Yeah.
keeps you involved with football in your mind, Coach?
All of that. All of that. I just like the contacts I made over the years. Kids that I had coached back in the 70s still call. There's a kid calls me once a month from Arkansas. Kid up in Detroit calls me once a month just to see how I'm doing and touch base. Tell me stuff that I didn't know happened. I didn't know happened, but the kids really, the ones I've come in contact, especially here at Liberty Center, when those kids are like what I coached in Ironton. Yeah.
Those kids can play for you, huh?
Yeah. But I'm not down, and I'll throw this out again. Talking about Archbold, they got a great coach in David Dominic, and he's got a great staff. And I was coaching when he was a player, and he's a very bright, upcoming guy, and I respect the heck out of he and his family. But I've come in contact with so many great people in the game of football, and you have too, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But well, I fought it also as a kid. My mom sent me to the seminary to be a Catholic priest, and well, that wasn't going to work out. Then we had football down there. We had tackle football, and I came up here, and I just loved that contact and the drudgery of it. And yeah, I don't care. I was losing 8 pounds of sweat, and taking salt pills. And no, there's no water. We didn't have
Salt tablets were water back then to you, right? Take more salt tablets. That'll make you play better.
Yeah, nobody was dying though. What the heck?
Yeah. And nobody got injured either, did they?
No, but I hope I didn't leave anybody out, because I've had so many great people that have touched my life, and to this day I'm finding more people that have touched my life, and I love it.
Yeah, life is about relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. I want you to share one more story, because you shared it off the air before we started. When you got to Findlay and you raced a future Buffalo Bill player, right,
Yeah.
Coach? Tell us about that.
Oh, well, I had a little speed as a kid, and back then you ran 100 yards instead of 100 meters. It's like 9/10 of a second difference, and I ran 9 under 10 seconds. And so we had a sophomore at Findlay was a kid by the name of Odell Berry. So he was the fastest. He ran 9.6 as a freshman at Findlay. And so the first practice, Lou Jurat says, Schrickel, Berry, we were running on the grass, 100 yards on the grass. I stayed with him for about 50 or 60, and then, well, that's when you find out if you're a world-class sprinter at the last 40. And he looked around, he basically said, where are you at? And I didn't feel bad, because that year, he ran the 100-yard dash at Donnell Stadium in 9.2.
Wow.
And a guy from Villanova had the world's record at 9.2, but they didn't have a wind gauge, a wind meter, but they had 4 watches on him, and they timed him at 9.2. And I didn't feel bad after I raced him when he ran that daggone fast.
Right. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Coach, thank you so much. I speak for Tory as well, but you're as respected of a man as there is in Northwest Ohio when it comes to football and just life in general. And,
Lynn, thank you for inviting me over there. What a pleasure.
Thank you. I talk to a lot of coaches, and they always speak so highly of Coach Lynn Schrickel, and it was good to spend some time with you for kind of the first time in my life, and thank you very much. It was an absolute privilege and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Coach, thank you. And Lynn summed it up. I've been blessed to cross paths with you, to coach your grandsons, and we love you.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep.
I love you, too.
Yep.
That was great.
Yep. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. Thank you to KK Collision,
Thank you.
title sponsor of our football show. We'll be back next Tuesday, actually, with Labor Day.
Yes.
We'll be back September 2nd. Have a great week, everyone.